Rhett Palmer. The mayor of the airwaves is ready to go. Talking to people you want to know. Face to face, one on one. Get the story and have some fun with Rhett Palmer.
And now, the most trusted name in radio, Rhett Palmer, the mayor of the airwaves.
Hello, welcome to the Rhett Palmer Show. This is Jim Feeney sitting in for Rhett, and as we typically do on Wednesdays, our guest is retired U.S. diplomat David Hunter. We love to talk about the world of geopolitics and what's going on in the world, and David does a great job pulling this together for us. So I think we've got Rhett on his way here, so I will briefly... my hosting job is very brief today because the mayor has arrived. Okay.
Yeah,
yes, we
starting.
did.
We're starting. Hey, good to be here, Jim, and it's always great to have you on the show because you add some interesting new angles and perspectives on it. Our problems are complex with so many different foreign policy topics going around right now. So we got a full plate today. What's the first thing up on the?
First thing we have is the House passed the funding for supplemental funding for Ukraine, Israel, and the Pacific Theater after many months of wrangling. It took Speaker Mike Johnson's wise move to split what the Senate had passed, that was one omnibus sort of bill, into separate bills, because there are separate type issues, although they are related in that they're funding for allies. But by the separation of it, it made it easier to pass the House, and once it passed the House, those individual bills had just passed the Senate. So we now get funding for Ukraine, for Israel, for the Pacific Theater, and the conservatives didn't get everything they wanted. There was no tie to border security, which is extremely important, at least as important as any of these things that they just voted on. But Mike Johnson, as Speaker, understood that we'll have to, unfortunately, wait for another day, another administration. But he got done what could be gotten done.
Yeah, well, I want to give some kudos to Mr. Johnson. This is remarkable that he is actually in this rather fractured House of Representatives, which has Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz and some of these extremists that are literally threatening his very speakership.
Sure.
And he said, I don't care. You can try to take me down, remove me from office. What's right is right, and I'm going to do it. And so I really commend him. I think this is an example of bipartisanship, which is what we need more of in America. Like you said before, you've got fringes on the left and fringes on the right. They need to be trimmed. The fringes need to be trimmed, and
we're waiting for the Democrats to do that, but that hasn't happened yet.
Well, I hope Mr. Johnson can remain in office for several more months without being removed on this provision that's been put into the House.
I did hear, I did read some article citing several prominent Democrats saying that they would support Mike Johnson as these are Democrats, not members of his party. They would support Speaker Johnson if there was the mutiny from the Marjorie Taylor Greene types.
That's the big D Democrats. Yeah, big D Democrats.
Yeah. So, and I think that'd be a wise move. And again, the political hygiene, the right is doing it. Nikki Haley grabbing substantial amounts of votes in many states as a choice, an alternative to Donald Trump, which I wish we had, but we don't.
Yeah.
So I think the right is trying its best to move beyond its extreme right flank. I really wish that the Democrats would do that as well. I look at the protests going on college campuses and other places around the country in support of Hamas, which I think is completely disgusting. But that is part of their extreme radical left flank.
Let's save that for later. We're not going to talk about Israel quite yet. We're on Ukraine. There is a lot to cover today.
So go ahead. I mean, so Ukraine, what's Ukraine going to do with this money?
Well, I want to explain to the audience out there, first of all, how important this is, because Ukraine has been literally out of ammo for months. They're down to firing about 2,000 rounds a day from what they were in the past when they were fighting against Russia.
Is that 2,000 rounds per
day.
soldier?
No, rounds per day of the total army of Ukraine into firing it at Russian positions.
These are
these 155 millimeter
howitzer shells.
Howitzer shells.
Yeah.
They're big shells. Now the thing is, these are like bullets. Think of them like big bullets. Okay, and they're used routinely with these movable howitzers and the stationary howitzers that we've supplied that they tow on the back of a truck and set up. And they basically can target Russian positions and tanks and other things and take them out. Now, the point is, Russia has been firing approximately 20,000 rounds a day. 20,000. Now, think about this. Ukraine is firing right now, because of its shortage of artillery shells, it's firing 2,000 rounds. And Russia is firing 20,000 rounds. That's a 10-to-1 advantage by Russia. Okay? Now, clearly, Russia is knocking the hell out of the Ukrainians right now because they don't have the ability to fight back. The Ukrainians have to be very strategic.
This is exactly right. David is and some of this money, as my understanding, is going to replenish supplies that have been drawn down in prior months to give to Ukraine. So we've got to replenish our stocks as well. And we have to spend a hell of a lot more in defense than we are now. But that said, I want to ask David, and I kind of know the answer to this, but it begs asking anyway. We're giving Ukraine sort of the minimum amount to sort of keep their head above water in this. But why hasn't the Biden administration given Ukraine the serious long-range weapons it would need, that Russia has? Because Russia, remember, has air superiority, because we're not giving Ukraine the things that they actually need, which is planes, sophisticated planes, so they can blow stuff up on the other side like the Russians are doing. Why hasn't the United States really given Ukraine the long-range weapons they need to truly win this war, rather than trying not to lose it?
Well, I want to kind of focus on the artillery shells for a minute,
Sure.
because it may explain the answer to your question.
Those are short range. Those are
short range. Those
10,
go about
10,
25 miles.
25 miles.
25 miles. That's not too short. 25 miles is a pretty good range for an artillery shell. Now, the reality is, Jim, we don't have the production capacity. Part of the billions of dollars that we're giving to Ukraine is actually going to build new factories in the United States to make more artillery shells.
That's a good thing.
Well, it's a real good thing. It also is a bad thing because it wakes us up to realize we don't have the production capacity.
But the fact that we're waking up as a country.
It's actually
that's a good thing.
Russia and Ukraine are doing us a favor by waking us up, because we're
I
right
agree.
now. Do you know where most of our artillery shells are made? They're made in Scranton, Pennsylvania, at the Scranton Army Ammo Plant, which is 100 years old.
And I believe
100 years old.
Yes, I believe that plant's right next to Dunder Mifflin, the paper company.
Okay.
You don't watch The Office. Okay. For those of the audience that watch The Office, they'll see the humor.
Well, it is on the Registry of Historic Places. This is an artillery factory.
It's terrible. Yeah.
Okay. And it's,
are you saying that's the only place we have in the
That's
United
the main place in the United States for making these 155 millimeter
I think
shells.
we should open one here in Vero Beach.
Well, their
Make
plans.
this a defense.
They're actually plans to expand
to other
areas of the country, but now, and that's just for making the steel casing of the shell.
Right.
Then it goes out to Iowa, and there's another place in Iowa called the Iowa Army Ammo Plant, which was built in 1940, World War II.
They jam the powder in there?
That's where they jam the powder in, put in all the firing pins and explosives and all that kind of stuff. And of course, that's also dilapidated, run down. They're now trying to put in, $500 million to amp it up. But you're talking about old backwater plants that were not ready to meet modern day demands of a.
Wasn't that kind of the situation we were in the lead up to World War II, where we appeased our enemies for a while, and it's like, oh, we don't want to escalate. The word, escalate, but it all ended up on our shores anyway, and we found ourselves ill prepared.
Yeah, we're supposedly the arsenal of democracy, but our arsenal is
I'm with you. So just to
Yeah.
give the audience an illustration. Many years ago, we're from the Boston area originally,
Yeah.
and outside of Boston. And when my kids were young, my son was young, I was the Cub Scout pack leader in our town, and we took our boys on a field trip, and girls. We had some girls too, on a field trip to Fall River, Massachusetts, which was one of the old Navy yards. Still is a Navy yard. Produces ships. The naval equivalent of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And we got tours of battleships, and we slept overnight on the battleships. Tours of submarines, and then when you take these tours and you go to places like the engine room,
Yeah.
especially on the sub, you would see all of these massive engines made by General Motors and consoles made by the Ford Motor Company, and on and on. I think Americans have to realize that in order to win a world war like we did, coming in unprepared, we had to completely change the nature of our industrial base from a consumer footing, making stuff that make our lives easy, to a war footing,
Right.
that was most of our economy. And my mother and father would tell stories about standing in butter lines and bread lines when they were children during World War II. So I'm not advocating that that's where we need to necessarily go
Right.
here. We may if it ever gets to that point, but we're so woefully underprepared, and the physical plant we need to produce what we need to protect ourselves
Yeah.
is dilapidated.
Well, think about this. We are now, as of October 2023, we were producing 28,000 shells per day.
Yep.
That's the production, per month. Sorry, 28,000 shells per month. And as of April of 2024, right now we're producing 37,000 shells, and we're hoping by October of this year we'll be able to produce 60,000 shells. But you have to remember, 60,000 shells. If the Ukrainians are firing an average, or would like to fire an average of 4,000 shells a day, that's not going to last very long. That's per day, and we're making 60,000 shells a month. And that's total for the whole of the United States.
So that tells me. So when I see that, just
Yeah.
as a businessman,
Yeah.
Measuring throughput with intake, supply demand, if you will.
Yeah.
Just firing shells in kind of this has kind of gotten down to, or has been up until very recently, more like World War I trench warfare. The lines are drawn, and each of them are lobbing howitzers on the other side of the equation, but they've got huge anti-tank defenses all over the place, and you just wait. You're throwing these shells, but not with not
With
much
no
effect.
accuracy.
And yet we have weapons that can change the tide of that war overnight, and yet we don't give them to Ukraine.
Well, there's a revolution going on in artillery. This is something most people don't know about, and I'm going to break this to the audience and to you. This is called precision artillery. They're now using GPS on artillery shells with wings that pop out of the shell after it's been fired out of the cannon, and it can guide itself to the destination, to the GPS targeted destination.
No kidding.
Yes, I'm not kidding.
Are we giving these to Ukraine?
Well, I'll explain it. The fact is, there's also a second type of artillery shell that's being developed that is a laser-guided artillery shell.
So they're precision munitions.
They're precision munitions. My question is, with a drone. This is the thing. The drone is using the laser to target the target.
Do the Russians have such stuff?
Yes. In fact, the Russians are leading in this technology, far in advance of us. The Russians are way ahead of us on drone laser-guided munitions, where they send up a drone, get it over there, and this is the point. Tanks, for example, they have heavy steel protecting them from low-level,
ground fire.
But the most vulnerable
not against a howitzer.
the most vulnerable part of a tank is the top.
Yeah.
And what the artillery shells can do, they can come straight down the top of a tank and hit the top. And
They have
therefore,
that kind of precision?
they have that kind of precision.
It seems to me, though,
From a drone laser.
Yeah, if I'm assuming the Russians aren't lobbing 20,000 of those, because that's sophisticated stuff.
Well, here's the issue: cost.
Most of it's the old. Yes, of course,
Here's
it always comes.
Do you
down
know
to
that? Do you know that our developed smart artillery is costing $100,000 a shell? I'm not kidding. $100,000 for one shell, one of these rounds. But however, one of those rounds is probably 1,000 times more accurate, and therefore it can eliminate the target.
It's more effective. The cost,
without
cost
firing.
benefit, I see it.
Yeah, so you're in, well, it's not much. The reality is that the Russians have these laser guided artillery shells.
Does it cost them $100,000
No,
a
it
shell?
costs them approximately $5,000 a shell.
Yeah. Okay.
So here's the problem: we have an enormously expensive defense industry. The $400 toilet seats. We are spending far too much money, and we are developing weapons that are too delicate for the battlefield conditions that they're under. That's been a common problem. I've studied Russian arms for many years, and look at the old Kalashnikov, the AK-47. Still around, the most reliable weapon in every
fire it
army.
underwater almost. Mud, it's easy to clean.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So the reality is we are, and we've got these fancy equipment that gets stuck in the mud and won't fire in the water. And if the dust is up, we can't manage
So
because
the
of
long
the
and
dust.
short of it, so we can wrap up this topic
Yeah.
and maybe move to the next one is, yes, we're both happy, David and I, that Ukraine is getting funding, and some of that funding is going to modernize our dilapidated defense infrastructure, industrial base.
Yeah.
And I think we can both agree that going forward, regardless of who the next president is, we need to be, let's all take a little less Social Security and a little less welfare and food stamps and the rest of us, because the true common good, the definition of common good is self-defense, border, a very few other things listed in the Constitution. And I don't care. Everyone needs to have skin on the game on this. We need to ramp up our defense spending. Right now, we're barely hitting 3%. Under Ronald Reagan, it was almost 6%, and during World War II, in the lead up to there, it was in the double digits.
And Russia is now spending 7% of their GDP.
Russia, and that's the thing. That's another thing we want the audience to understand, that our adversaries, and they're substantial adversaries. We're talking Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran. That is an unholy alliance that I would argue is nearly as powerful as the Nazis were as a coalition in World War II.
Yeah.
And they've put their economies on war footing, right? Maybe less so China. North Korea has never not been on war footing. It's unfortunately, they are a militarized state. Russian economy under Putin is on a war footing. Iran has been on a war footing since the mullahs got into power, and they project their power through proxies. And we are dawdling in this country, sipping our lattes and thinking that none of this will ever wash up on our shores, and we're spend nothing or not nothing on defense, but it does not reflect the realities of the world. What say you?
We do spend a lot already on defense. I'm arguing that we are spending it on a lot of fancy toys that don't work. The F-22 was a disaster.
Yep.
We spent money on that like gazillions. The same thing with our latest Ford-class aircraft carrier. And nobody knows about this, but the Ford that was over there in the Mediterranean just recently, it has massive problems with its magnetic launch system, so you can't get the planes off the aircraft carrier, okay? And you can't land them again. That's a big problem for an aircraft carrier.
I would think.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's been a problem for 6 years.
Well, can we do me a favor, because this is something that I've researched quite a bit,
Yeah.
and I actually talk about extensively in my book, Locally Grown, The Art of Sustainable Government, 5 years old. Go get it at Amazon and other places, because we need it more than ever in this country. It was relevant 5 years ago. It's really relevant now. However, but rationalizing the military, auditing. I mean, and this is not an easy. You're depending on the industrial complex. But to your point, $100,000 a shell. That seems ridiculous. So where's that money going? Is it really I mean, if they're making that much money, I would look at companies like, say, Lockheed Martin and Raytheon that are defense contractors, and you look at the price of their stock, right? Unless they're doing some amazing funny business and generating all this cash that are going to black operations and for aliens and UFOs and so on and so forth, then their stock price, their free cash flow, says it isn't at a point where their stock should be stratospheric because these $100,000 shells are turning into. No, it's a reasonable return, and the price of the stock is kind of up and down. So, but yet it's still $100,000. Where's that money going? I'd say one place to stop is get the unions out of there because they do nothing but drive costs. So those are all unionized labor plants. Get rid of that, and then. I don't know who gets to do this or who has the balls to do it. You got to fire the Joint Chiefs of Staff on down to a level until you get to those one-star generals and other officers that believe that we need to be on a war footing and can be serious about holding the defense contractors' feet to the fire.
Well, the issue, I think, is that the defense contractors are holding the congressmen's feet to the fire.
Yeah,
and
that
the congressmen are the ones who are basically working to specify, if you put that in my town or my city, then I will allow you to do whatever you want.
Sure.
And unfortunately, we are not using our defense funds efficiently in order to make good weapons decisions. We've had all these competitive. I followed the jet fighter industry quite closely because my father was a fighter pilot, so even the F-35, which is supposedly our war horse, it is a very inefficient weapon. It has too many options to it. It's like you decided to make an SUV and you put everything on it.
This is a great topic. Great topic. And I wasn't aware that was the case, but it makes sense to me because, for you folks out there, think of the cars that you have now. You know what the biggest bottleneck is in the supply chain of building a car? It's not steel or aluminum or wires. It's silicon chips that go into every component of making that car run, theoretically more efficiently, right? And one little chip goes, your car could be, in the shop for months because they can't get the chips. Because where do those chips come from? Oh, they come from Taiwan. Well, guess what? China wants to attack Taiwan, right? And so you can see the problem there. And all of those chips build in a level of complexity into the vehicle. Like I tell my wife, and just full disclosure to the audience, I'm a technologist. I made my money by building software to make delivering insurance claims more efficient. I know about this, all right? And still, with all that, I'm saying, I don't care. I'd rather roll up my window with my hand than have to, and that's been around forever. Now, every little piece, where can I buy a car that's simpler, runs on gas, maybe it's a hybrid, and just get rid of the GPS. I don't want to be tracked. Right, because as you were saying, those howitzer shells, right? They can go to the top of a hatch of a tank. That can get hacked and go to the top of my car, right? So get less technology, but make it do what it's supposed to do.
Well, speaking of that, that's a good
and will be cheaper, a lot cheaper.
That's a good segue to our next topic.
Okay. Yeah. Then let's talk about that.
Yeah.
That's actually a great segue. So another important development or interesting development is that one of the big data mining companies called Palantir, they built artificial intelligence. They're just and have been a major defense contractor in terms of data mining and data analysis for the United States government. Palantir, Palantir. I don't believe they're public yet, but they are.
Yes, they are public.
They just became public.
They're public.
Yeah, recently. Okay, good.
Look at this.
Palantir stands with Israel.
A full-page ad, if you can see it on the here. This is Palantir stands with Israel. This is a full-page ad in the New York Times.
Yep.
For now.
Good for them.
Yeah, but
I like Palantir.
The question is.
Yes.
Why does Palantir stand with Israel? Okay, is there a reason for it? And I'll explain. I want to explain to the audience who Palantir is. It is part of what I call cutting-edge AI, artificial intelligence. One of their specialties is facial recognition, and the other is...
Their founders are Jewish technologists, right? Some from Israel, some from here in the United States.
Yeah, Mr. Karp, Alexander Karp. is the co-founder of Palantir, and the fact that he's Jewish, I have no problem with that. I mean, that's fine. The fact that he has decided to go into Israel and provide a massive strategic assistance program for the Israeli army, and you know what he's doing with his technology company, and I'll explain the technology company in a minute, but what he's doing is he's essentially helping the Israelis develop kill lists, K-I-L-L lists, of Hamas fighters. Now, that may sound like a good idea.
Fighters, not the leaders. Fighters.
Fighters, yeah.
To be able
everybody
to
that's
be
Hamas.
able to. So what that would allow Israel or anyone having the technology, which is a good thing, cause less civilian casualties. And not needing to throw like these big weapons that have to kill a large space. You can use AI to literally. There's lots of cameras on the battlefield nowadays, between drones and on the ground. That AI would effectively be able to go into large crowds, read the faces, because we have facial recognition, and that's been around. It's in our cities, in our big cities, with cameras on the street. We have that technology. So, if Palantir is providing that, I would say, well, for all the howling in globally that Hamas has kind of prodded. The civilian casualties. This would limit civilian casualties by a lot if you could, within a 95% confidence interval, identify that someone is the.
Because see, that's logical. What you're suggesting, it sounds logical. Everybody thinks, okay, Jim, you must be right, and that must be why Palantir's over there.
That's my opinion. I'm just reading the tea leaves because I know that we on this show over the past few weeks we've been talking about, look at all those civilian casualties. Hey, Rhett, I'm playing you on the air. Look at all those civilian casualties. Where's my bow? All right, David, what is it going to be now?
This is also one where I'm leading Jim down the little path, ready for a bushwhacking.
Yes, I could. Yeah, I can feel the hoofbeats on my tail. I can smell the gunpowder from here.
Yeah. So the reality is that part of the Palantir and the.
So we're getting along too well.
Okay.
There he is, the mayor. When are we going to see the mayor?
He'll show up. Part of this is actually the program is called Where's Daddy.
Where's Daddy?
Where's Daddy is.
That sounds a little creepy, David. I don't know.
That's part of Palantir's program with the Israelis.
That's a great name then.
With Israelis.
For kill technology. Where's Daddy?
Now, it so happens that what they do is they identify who their Hamas target is.
Yep.
And then they identify through what they've been doing since the Afghan war, is they developed what was called a pattern of behavior, tracking the person. It's called pattern of life analysis. You go to for Starbucks for coffee in the morning at 8 a.m. You go to the to the barber shop at every Tuesday. They identify these
So that's really powerful technology. And just for the audience, as a quick stop, and I'll let David continue. That technology, for that exists to distinguish Hamas terrorists from the general population. Guess what, folks? That exists in this country and can be used against Americans.
I'm going to talk about that.
Good.
I'm going to talk about it.
All right. So as long as we understand where the cutting lines are.
I agree. I think the point is, these are remarkable technologies. And actually, it's ironic that the founder of Palantir himself,
Karp.
No, it wasn't Karp. It was the
That doesn't matter.
One of the other guys that was the founder of Palantir. He said that the most alarming result of this technology is not AI in general. It's what's called surveillance AI. Surveillance. Using AI in cameras and with pattern of
real-time feeding video.
He said that is going to cement the ability to control populations.
All right,
populations.
Okay, so yes, we frame that. This is very powerful.
Yeah,
can be very dangerous, especially in a country that's a democracy where the people are supposed to rule.
Yeah.
Right. Is this a good thing to give this to Israel? It's developed here in the United States. It's American tech. We don't have to give it to anybody. we could argue it shouldn't go to our government to use on individuals.
us.
Yep,
Yeah.
and that's
And it's very similar to FISA, the same issue with
yeah,
FISA.
yeah.
The FISA
which
courts.
which
yeah.
was just reestablished by Congress. I
Yeah.
think one of those tough things that also is double-edged.
Yeah, so the key here is surveillance state technology. That's what it is. It's surveillance state
Yes,
technology
yep.
being used with Palantir's able assistance and the Where's Daddy program, by the way. Let me explain what it is.
Yep.
They essentially identify where this so-called terrorist lives and where he sleeps at night, and then they bomb him in his bed at sleep
At the best,
night.
at the most opportune
At
time.
the most opportune time. And if it so happens that it kills his family, and it happens to kill a number of neighbors who live in that same building, tough luck. Now, here's the issue. Palantir's program is largely automated, Jim, and I want, you work in technology, so I want you to think about this. I want the audience to think about this. You have an automated system which has developed a 32,000 kill list of so-called Hamas in Gaza, 32,000. They've got their faces, they're following their pattern, looking for them. Essentially, once they can find an opportunity, they will take them out. Higher level Hamas members, the civilian to target ratio of deaths, acceptable ratio of deaths is 100-1.
That's really good.
Well, I disagree. The U.S. would also disagree with you. Okay, the U.S. has never gone anywhere near that.
Okay, excuse me.
We did not even
No.
take out bin Laden and kill his family.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
went in
Never
and took
mind.
him out and saved his family.
I retract that. So what was? 'Cause
Give me the bell.
Yeah, because I read. I don't care what they say. I'm still the mayor. This is my show, David. I'll say what I want. Hey, let me tell you the story about Poughkeepsie. Ever been there? It's a wonderful place. See. Thank you, Noah. So, yes, these are big questions. I would advocate that, even though it's 100-1, I don't know if I believe that. I mean, you're throwing a lot of facts and figures here coming from a known direction. Maybe that is, maybe that isn't. But anything that can help Israel win on the battlefield as quickly as possible so this war can get over, so that you can negotiate a two-state solution. We've been down this track. David and I mostly agree on what the end game is here for Israel. But if this technology can get us there faster, I don't care whether it's going to be a price to pay for total war of determination.
Well, my point here in bringing up this, the kill ratio is bad enough when I say 100-1. The other problem is who is Hamas, and how do you define who's a Hamas? If you happen to have a cell phone, a smartphone, and you change your SIM chip like 3 times a month, that adds to the suspicion that you probably are a Hamas member. Okay, so they don't have absolute proof of any of this stuff.
Of course, AI is not is fallible.
And
Yes, I get it.
And what's happening with this so-called pattern of terrorism behavior? Oh, you hang out in a garden somewhere. This was actually tried out in Afghanistan. The United States troops were actually.
So I think you've made your point. More detail on it isn't going to change the nature of the point. This is an area of agreement and disagreement at the same time. So let's just raise it up.
They don't know who they're killing. They don't know who they're killing.
I think they know who they're killing to a greater degree than they did without the weaponry.
Actually, the AI, let me explain this. The AI is deciding for the soldiers.
Yeah.
The soldiers have
And that's all based on real data from real war footage and so on. And we know the technology is valuable. We know that it learns. So it gets better. It's going to make it more efficient. Again. So
is there a human involvement? That's
so
what
is
I'm
it,
asking
is it
you,
better?
Jim. Think about this.
Hopefully there is.
You've got a RoboCop, wild RoboCop working on the job.
Yep. No. This is
a robot killing people without any human involvement.
No. Listen, I agree with you, and that's where I want this conversation to go. Is get to the big issues. I mean, all the tech.
Big issue.
That's a big issue. So I would say I agree with you. I would say
it could come to America too.
I would say that to the extent you could even enforce it, we could want it, right? But we have no power to enforce to say, hey, you cannot use this technology unless there's a human curator, an editor, a final human that pushes the button and say, yep, that's a real Hamas guy. Yeah, okay, let's all agree. Yeah, that would be great. We should have that. How does that get implemented in a chain of command in a military? when all sorts of other things are at stake, I don't know.
See,
You know, I'll tell you another quick story.
Yeah.
Way back when I worked for an asbestos removal company,
Okay.
union shop, I got labor's union. I was the kind of CFO of this outfit, and you remove asbestos from schools and all kinds of places. Well, one day we got this contract to remove asbestos from the Colonial Meatpacking Factory, which makes Fenway Franks. For all you Bostonians out there, Fenway Franks, get your Fenway Franks here.
your stomach is
Yeah.
irradiated with.
Well, I move our crews in there, and I would actually go on site and do the asbestos removal a lot of times as well. And as we're moving, you could see like dead rat carcasses everywhere. I was like, what the hell? I mean, I'm never going to eat a Fenway Frank again. You know, the place is abandoned, right? And then they got a few workers on site, foreman that works for Colonial Meatpacking. I said, hey, what's up with the rat? He goes, we try to get rid of it. But did you know this? This will scare you. That the FDA allows a certain very small percentage of rat hair in sausages. Well, guess why? Because they can't get rid of it. They can't get to any situation because they measure it all the time. So my point's a long-winded way of saying we could want this curator for AI all we want.
Yeah.
And how do you enforce it?
Well, you mentioned this could come back to America, and I'm not talking about kill lists per se.
But just the technology
but
generally.
the
It's surveillance state.
Surveillance state technology.
That can't happen here.
Israel is now using surveillance state technology in the West Bank. This is something else that most people don't know. In fact, they have something called the Red Wolf program, which is being used in Hebron, which is a major city in the West Bank. And the Red Wolf program tracks biometric data of all of the Palestinians coming and going. They have camera ID, facial recognition, biometric, all this kind of stuff.
Sure.
If you want to go through and pass from one part of Hebron to another part of Hebron, and you go through an IDF checkpoint or a police checkpoint, then you have to have all this biometric stuff taken on you.
All right, so listen, we're here to talk about America.
Are we? I thought we were talking about foreign policy.
Well, right, yes, but for like this, so from a foreign policy perspective, this technology, again, is very valuable.
Or dangerous.
Or dangerous, right. But you're in a wartime situation, and that already
Israel has been in a war for 40 years, okay? They've been using this kind of surveillance technology.
Yep.
What we're doing now, and we need to think about it as Americans, is are we going to help Israel expand their surveillance technology in order to make themselves safe by making the people that they're controlling become more like rats in a lab?
I would say in the short term, yes, it needs to do what it needs to because everybody, I stand with Israel. David brought this in, not me, okay?
That's from
agree.
Palantir.
I
disagree.
agree.
I disagree, and I think Mr. Karp, who is Jewish, is over there making lots of money.
Careful
and
now.
testing.
Careful now, David.
No, wait. He is
Careful.
He is making lots of money. The point is whether he agrees with what he's doing is irrelevant.
I think he's making lots of money, and he agrees with it.
Do you understand? This is
because he wouldn't be in the business of doing this if he didn't agree with it.
Well, he was over in Ukraine doing this. He was over in Afghanistan doing this. Okay, and he has developed himself into the leading AI technology company providing defense industry, U.S. defense industry.
I can smell the near and present danger. I can smell it.
Okay,
we are,
good.
and to talk, and this is where I like to get to.
Good.
Let's boil down these very complicated issues, and I think David does a great job, and I think we do it kind of together, taking facts on the ground that are organized, but more loosely, and we distill them. We put them through the crucible of our intellects, right? And then get to the big questions. And that's where the rubber meets the road. And this is an exact example of that where, from one perspective, for me, I'm saying, I want to give Israel any edge it can get because it needs to win a war. It's an existential thing for Israel. Now, that said, I want that genie to go back in the bottle, never to be used again unless absolutely necessary. Well, who makes the rules around the deployment? Because I guarantee you, we already know that the Chinese government, the Russian government, the North Korean, they're the experts in surveillance of their population. They know how to do that. They regularly employ it. And this is probably for us just catching up. The bigger question for me is, this needs to be an American company. There got to be some clear rules over exporting that technology to anybody, whether it's an ally like Israel, and certainly not dual use. Any component of the supply chain to deliver these products become dual use for our adversaries. So I think we're on the same page with that. All right. But you need legislation. You got to put a ring around a company like this, and that kind of goes into the larger bucket of getting us on a war footing.
They are not included in the ITAR regs with their defense industry critical mission. They are still not considered a.
I'm going to take your word, and I assume ITAR. What does that stand for?
International Trade in Arms.
Okay, so they're somehow
we have regulations about international trade in arms.
They're somehow out of that. Can we both agree that needs to change?
Well, I think they've been making a lot of their money on the defense industry. They're providing to Raytheon and Lockheed.
I know
and all these
Palantir
people.
is, and they're not just.
They
They're turning into a defense contractor
they
because
are
that's
becoming
where.
a defense
Guess what?
contractor.
That's where the money is.
Well,
okay.
Yeah, and that's where they've been focusing for many years now. So
Full
they should be
disclosure,
considered.
folks.
Yeah.
You know, I own some Palantir stock.
Okay.
So
How's it doing?
it's okay, right?
Okay.
It's up, down, but this is a long-term play.
Yeah.
Not a lot. It's a flyer, but the point is this: yes,
It's predicted to be a 5 times multiple by in another 3 years. So
yes,
so it is a buy if you're looking at a
absolutely
defense industry stock.
Absolutely.
I'm not promoting Palantir, by
no,
the way.
No. But
calling the cards on it.
Yes, but in a developed Western economy, we have these stock markets, and including defense contractors, and they have a lot of data out there that you can measure, and it all boils down into the cash flow, positive free cash flow. Can you take in your money, whether it's in the case of Palantir and Lockheed, from the federal government, because you're going to build us some aircraft, and they negotiate contracts. And to David's earlier point, those contracts get negotiated with some level of intentional political interference by members of Congress who want those dollars to flow to their districts. And that's been the way the United States has worked things since its founding.
And that's why our defense industry is less efficient than the autocrats industry.
We can talk about that. Yes, these are wonderful things that we talk about in a democracy, people. If we lived in China, in the Gaza Strip, in Iran, Russia, you couldn't talk. There would be men with guns outside stepping in to say, Jim and David, come with us, and never to be seen again.
If you live in the Gaza Strip and you identify a Israeli IDF soldier who has committed a war crime,
barbarians
you
are at the gate.
Identified as a terrorist for identifying the IDF.
Yep. My point is, the barbarians are at the gate. We need to protect against this, which means you need to call into this show. No, we got to find a way to get the call-ins. I want somebody to call in.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Joey from Iowa. I got a question. Rhett, you got to shut up and let the other people talk more.
Okay. Anyway, last thing on this topic. For those of you that are really interested, get a copy of First Platoon, A Story of Modern Warfare in the Age of Identity Dominance.
All right.
Okay, that's a book that I've read, and it covers the Afghanistan involvement of our using identity recognition as a weapon of
So we're not
war.
going to solve this problem.
Yeah.
We're going to table this for a later discussion. But I think Dave and I are kind of in the same zone of agreement on this. We need the technology. It needs to be American, and it should fall under whatever rules we have about non-exporting strategic stuff, which David says it doesn't, and I agree that should be changed. If Donald Trump's elected president, right, that should be one of the first things he does is through executive order, if he's able to, make sure you pull all of this smart under one roof. Whoever's president, they all should be doing that. Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So I want to move on a little bit to like the big elephant in the room.
Okay.
Like I love to talk about, be talking about current events when there's a clear change in the rules of the game, the well understood rules.
Right.
And we just had an event like that with regard to Iran and Israel, or at least Iran launching an attack from its soil into the actual country of Israel.
Okay.
And Israel's, the reason they did that for Israel's, killing of an Iranian general at a diplomatic site in Syria.
Which we talked about last week.
So, but the bloom is off the rose. Now, let's just be clear, Iran launched 300 missiles and drone combinations, these things called swarms, from its territory into Israel if that stuff had landed, it would have caused untold destruction.
Yeah,
right?
But it took 6 hours to get there. Most
yeah,
of the
yeah,
drones,
we knew it was coming. Yeah, so the bottom line is,
and the U.S. and everybody else,
the
allies,
U.S. and
UK,
some NATO members,
even Jordan,
and Jordan participated in shooting down 99% of all those
Right.
missiles, and the ones that did landed,
Yeah.
harmlessly. So a pretty amazing show of force, right? It's good to know that defense capability exists. We'll see how it works in a stressed war environment when the time frames are much shorter. But it worked, right? But the point is, Iran fired from its territory. It didn't work through proxies, and that sets a pretty scary precedent, don't you think?
Well, the point that a lot of people out there in the audience don't understand. Syria,
you're saying
whether it's in London,
Israel started.
Israel struck Iran on its own territory, its diplomatic territory. It was an embassy.
All right, so let's call.
So Israel started it.
Israel started. That's fine, but
So-
now we're in it.
So Iran now said, "Well, look, you strike my territory, I'm going to strike your territory."
Hamas started it, right?
Well,
when
no.
they oh yeah, they did.
This
They
Iran
murdered
thing-
1,200.
Wait a
Right,
minute.
I'm doing you now. They murdered 1,200 people.
Okay.
It started all
Okay,
this.
no,
We'd have
the
never
issue-
gotten to Iran
the
doing
issue-
anything or Israel doing anything.
No,
right?
Iran and Israel have
Hamas started this.
No, you're wrong.
Which means Iran started this.
You're wrong.
I'm right.
You're wrong. Iran did not start this. This has been going on as a Iran started this.
So, okay, but it's a known.
The fact is,
It's
that
a known.
This
Yeah,
has
yes.
been, what's only happened.
All the Arab nations tried to wipe Israel off the map 2 big times in the 60s and 70s, and they failed. Israel defended itself, and they have a sovereign nation. That's also a known.
Okay, well,
who
let's-
started what?
Okay,
if we go back to who started what,
let's go back.
Right?
Let's go back
then
to
we need
this.
to go back to biblical times.
Yeah,
Okay,
we will.
But
Next
let's
week
not
we'll
do that.
Next week we'll go back to biblical.
We're going to need Rhett for
We'll
that.
go back to pre-biblical times to Canaan. I've
Sure.
got some
The
information on Canaan.
Philistines, absolutely.
Yeah,
ancient Sumeria. Can we get back to the
yes.
Anunnaki,
No.
the ancient Sumerian
No,
gods
the
that are actually aliens?
Ugarites.
I'd love to talk about that.
The Ugarites, it's
I
about the
bet you
same
the-
time as the ancient Sumerians. But
All right.
we'll talk about that next week. So the reality, though, is that as of about 1947, some people that were bright-eyed Zionists decided, oh, we're going to take back the Holy Lands that we lost 1,800 years ago. Okay? And they showed up and with their guns, their Haganah and their Stern gang,
Yep.
and they started killing the people on the local population. Now, some of those people are what I call the Meir Kahane crowd. Meir Kahane.
We've been down this.
We've been
though.
down this, and I want the people in the audience to understand.
Okay, so-
let me finish. The reality is that group is considered hardline Zionists.
Yeah.
They do not believe that the Arabs have the right to live in Palestine at all. They don't believe it. They think that the only thing they can do is leave, die.
That's
be
a
expelled.
small portion of the Israeli population.
It happens to be the population that Iftach Ben Gvir, is a member of. He is one of the leaders of this far-right coalition that is driving.
Yeah,
I
it's
just explained before.
Israel, to the audience,
Netanyahu-
Israel's a coalition government, meaning they have all these little factions that together, I mean, Europe runs like this as well, the European countries, and you got to make deals with the devil in order to get a quorum or to get a majority. Because no one elects majorities anymore because it's a multi-party system, all right? So, yes, in order to form a government, you have to have this narrow, get Ben Gvir slice that believes that,
His party, the Osmit
Yahud right.
party.
But they're a small minority in the government. Powerful, they use their leverage, but they are a small minority.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
when
Let's not make it a big general thing. Yes.
Yeah, so-
So you're saying Israel started it back in the 40s.
this was part of the original Zionist, the hard right Zionist group was in favor of expelling everybody that wasn't Jewish from the whole area of Judea, Samaria,
so
and
do you
the
think,
Palestine.
David, the original sin with all of this, kind of germinated in the late 1800s with the Zionist movement? Is that the original sin for all of this?
I think that the original objective of Zionism was to find a homeland for the Jews. It was not to find Israel as a homeland for the Jews. That was the original objective of the Zionists. And Chaim Weizmann was working, as I've explained before, back in the 1917 period, 1915, 1917, to try to get the British to designate Palestine as a homeland for Jews, not as a country for Jews, merely as a place for them to live, as a safe homeland for them. Now, the reality, Rhett showed a map last week, and he showed this red spot of Israel and all of this green area around, which is all the other countries that are Muslim, and he said Israel is surrounded by enemies.
They are.
Well, guess what? You decide to come into an area that is already predominantly Muslim, plop yourself down, and then declare that Jews will be the dominant force and Arabs will be submissive or expelled. And you suddenly, you've created enemies. You've created enemies.
Yeah.
Because Jews did not come there to live as equals with the Arabs. They came to be the dominators, the ones who rule. That's the problem with this whole scenario. The scenario that we're looking at today does not imply that Jews will be equal to the Arabs. Right now, the Jewish scenario is that the Palestinians don't exist, that they are invisible. If one Jew dies, it's a tragedy. If 1,000 Arabs die, it means nothing. That's a bad situation.
All right, so David has gotten, now you've got that off your chest.
Well, I want you to think about that.
I've thought about it, and we've talked about this at great depth in prior episodes. I would encourage, to the extent that these episodes are saved and available on a hard drive on Facebook, you should go back as a primer to this discussion, because it's instructive. Because each week David brings in a really good curated list of top issues, and especially and many times with a lot of these issues, they raise up to the bigger questions and those pivot points in how you make a decision to go one way or the other, just given the facts on the ground. This is the reality we're living.
Right.
How do you process that?
Right.
And that is the job of diplomacy. That's the job of intelligence analysts. Which if I had to go back, I might have stayed in the Air Force and become an Air Force intel guy. But it's important. You have to do this.
Yeah.
So David is an anti-Zionist. Which means this does not mean he's anti-Semitic, and I know David, he's not anti-Semitic. Anti-Zionism is really the movement that he just described that created this conflict. And it goes back, 100 years. That history is history. I would say the Jewish people have had more than their share of discrimination and genocide over its history for 5,000 years, right? To me, from my perspective, that's a known. An important known.
Right.
Going back, how far back in time do we want to go? Well, let's do that. So, but we're not going to solve that. You're in a different opinion than I am. I love that America is a diverse tapestry, and the Jewish people in America, we're the largest Jewish population outside of Israel in the United States. It might even be bigger. I don't know.
Right.
But you cannot discount the contribution they've made to Western culture. They are part of Western culture. Even before there was America, they were part of Western culture because they assimilated themselves and added value in every country they were in. They brought their science, they became scientists, they became diplomats and mathematicians. They're contributing, right? And they tend to be more liberal, like devote to more common good causes and so on. How do you not like people like this? They come, they make it better than they found it. So I don't understand the millennia-long discrimination. Maybe it's just jealousy because they're good at it. Their cultures, the more you discriminate against someone, the more hardened they become and the more determined they become to succeed. Maybe it's that. But my point is this. It is what it is. They fought to have their own homeland. I think they're entitled to it. Did they break some eggs along the way? Yes, and that created some real problems that I acknowledge. So we need a two-state solution, which is where we also discussed and got to an inflection point where we didn't quite agree, and the end, the right of return. Let's just say this. The Jews, the Israelis, have as much right as the Palestinians. Not more, not less. They have the exact same. They're equal. So let's create a two-state solution that makes sense, that guarantees and reflects that Israel has a right to live there as well. And let's carve out a state for the native Palestinians. I'm sure there'll be a mountain of international aid that will go into making that a sustainable economic society. Let's just get there. Run, don't walk. right?
Yeah.
Forget about all this. Where are the negotiators that can sit down and say, this is good for everybody? Remember The Godfather? Remember The Godfather, Don Corleone was like, it's only business, right? It's only business.
Yeah. Well, if you start peeling back all of these what's called the Israeli dominance features of the current government, that is heading in the wrong direction, and we don't need to be supporting Israel in its path down the wrong road.
Okay, you're talking about the sort of Netanyahu defend at all costs, total war against the neighbors, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So I think we agreed on that. Part of our, David and I did this thing, if we were king for a day and we could create our own solution for this Middle East crisis, how would we do it? And we mostly agreed. It's like, all right, Netanyahu's got to go. The whole force vector of that government is antagonistic.
And his far-right extremists.
So again, we're king for a day. I said, okay, David, that's fine. You got that.
Yeah.
All right, we're negotiating territory. It's like the risk board, right? And I said, in exchange for that, Hamas has got to go. The root and stem, gone, right? And you have to find a credible way to guarantee Israel's security with this new state.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, okay, all right,
Well,
that's fine.
And you see,
so that's an important place to get to.
Yeah, if you think about it, see, Hamas is a liberation movement. They're not just, I hate Jews because they're Jews. They hate Jews because Jews have taken their land. You give them their land and give them their state, and they won't have a reason to fight.
That's fine. As long as because remember, as it sits now, the destruction of Israel is in the charter for Hamas. And it's in the charter for the PLO, the supposedly more moderate, group of folks that, corrupt leaders that purport to represent the Arab people. All billionaires. These people, they're thieves, they're corrupt, they're being led by bad people, right? The people on the street, the Arab street is getting a bill of goods sold to them by these corrupt people. But it is what it is.
Yeah, and to be honest, those groups called the PLO, for the most part, have been working for the Israelis as the Israelis' agent.
They're corrupt.
They're corrupt.
They're in it for
getting
themselves.
it for themselves.
And Hamas is in it for themselves.
Yeah.
Their political leaders are billionaires in Qatar on private jets and who knows what else they got.
Okay, well,
that's a known. That's a fact, folks. This is not an opinion.
It's
a
also
fact.
a known that the richest people in Israel are Russian Jews.
So what?
Who came over? They're oligarchs. They're oligarchs.
Who cares?
People
It's a
like
democracy. Israel took them in. We got oligarchs here.
Roman Abramovich. He is one of the richest men in the world, and he is an Israeli citizen and a Russian citizen and a friend of Putin's at the same time, okay? And a friend of Donald Trump. So go figure.
I don't care that he's a friend of either of those guys.
He's a very friendly guy.
I don't care. He made his deal with the Israeli government. They're a sovereign nation. They can do that.
Yeah.
And we can do that in the United States. That's not a crime.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Why don't we take a break?
Let's take a break.
And then we'll come back and I want to talk about the U.S. is sanctioning part of Israel's army.
I would prefer to talk about tulip gardening in the spring in the Northeast. Wouldn't that be much more fun?
Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Hey, Rhett.
The Minutemen answered the call during the American Revolution. Now, Minuteman Press answers the call with custom print and design services designed to promote your business like nobody's business. They lead the charge, but never overcharge for great design, print, and promotional materials. Minuteman Press in Vero Beach and now in Port St. Lucie. Ready to answer the call. Google Minuteman Press or visit pslminutemanpress.com.
Hi, I'm a golf enthusiast, and I love Big Shots Golf on US 1, next to Advanced Eye Care. I was at Big Shots recently and had a great time playing a virtual 18-hole golf course. Big Shots also serves really good food. The mini cheeseburgers are my favorite. I love the ice cream, too. For a fun time, bring your friends and family to Big Shots Golf on US 1.
I know you want to have a beautiful smile. Well, an examination, radiographs, a healthy cleaning would normally be well over $200. Gosh. Right now, for $79, you can call Plains Dental Arts, 231-6004. It's all included for $79. The examination, the radiographs, the healthy cleaning. Okay, call Plains Dental Arts. Make your appointment right now, 772-231-6004. Takes care of gingivitis, takes care of halitosis, gives you a great healthy smile. You get a thorough examination. Plains Dental Arts, just south of the Village Beach Market on A1A. Again, $79 for the examination, radiographs, healthy cleaning, 231-6004. Call now, 772-231-6004.
A.E. Stalls Real Estate and Associates is a hometown family company. Josh and Mandy Stalls, along with their two sons, have deep roots in this community. As a boutique brokerage, they are located steps away from Vero's beachside communities. They have a strong team of realtors, the tools, and experience to guide clients to the closing table. Helping clients feel confident in the buying and selling market is what they do. You can reach them at stallsrealestate.com, Facebook, or 772-800-8305.
They say you sleep a third of your life. So why is shopping for a mattress so important? There's a mattress store on every corner. But when you visit the Mattress Market Store, you'll find Steve and his family, in business for 35 years, waiting to help you find the best mattress at the best price to give you the best night's sleep. All the major brands: Serta Perfect Sleeper, Simmons Beauty Rest, Posh and Lavish, Urban Loft Ice, Pure Latex Bliss, I Love My Pillow, Kingsdown, Biscayne Bedding, and many more. US 1 right next to Waves, Mattress Market in Vero Beach. For a good night's sleep and a great deal. Mattress Market.
The Rhett Palmer broadcast is brought to you by Complete Electric Complete Alarm. Get your generator checked now before the next hurricane strikes. Call the good folks at Complete Electric Complete Alarm. You'll be safe and sound when the next hurricane strikes. Call Complete Electric Complete Alarm.
The Minutemen answered the call during the American Revolution. Now, Minuteman Press answers the call with custom print and design services designed to promote your business like nobody's business. They lead the charge, but never overcharge for great design, print, and promotional materials. Minuteman Press in Vero Beach and now in Port St. Lucie. Ready to answer the call. Google Minuteman Press or visit pslminutemanpress.com.
They say you sleep a third of your life. So why is shopping for a mattress so important? There's a mattress store on every corner. But when you visit the Mattress Market Store, you'll find Steve and his family, in business for 35 years, waiting to help you find the best mattress at the best price to give you the best night's sleep. All the major brands: Serta Perfect Sleeper, Simmons Beauty Rest, Posh and Lavish, Urban Loft Ice, Pure Latex Bliss, I Love My Pillow, Kingsdown, Biscayne Bedding, and many more. US 1 right next to Waves, Mattress Market in Vero Beach. For a good night's sleep and a great deal. Mattress Market.
I know you want to have a beautiful smile. Well, an examination, radiographs, a healthy cleaning would normally be well over $200. Gosh. Right now, for $79, you can call Plains Dental Arts, 231-6004. It's all included for $79. The examination, the radiographs, the healthy cleaning. Okay, call Plains Dental Arts. Make your appointment right now, 772-231-6004. Takes care of gingivitis, takes care of halitosis, gives you a great healthy smile. You get a thorough examination. Plains Dental Arts, just south of the Village Beach Market on A1A. Again, $79 for the examination, radiographs, healthy cleaning, 231-6004. Call now, 772-231-6004.
Indian River County, roll with us, recycle.
It's hard to recycle, right? Pizza boxes, milk cartons, dog food bags, frozen food boxes, to-go cups and lids. Where do they all go? No worries, there's an app for that. Download the Carter's Corner app on your mobile device at Google Play or the Apple App Store, or visit indianriver.gov to find out if an item is recyclable in your blue cart or not. So eliminate confusion at the cart and recycle right with the Carter's Corner app.
And hit the intro.
You don't have to hit the intro.
This is the intro. Is this it?
No, just go.
Are we good?
We're going?
Are we good? All right, good.
We're back
Wow.
on.
I'm sorry. I'm a neophyte at this. That's
Okay.
Noah. I want to just give a quick shout out to Noah. He's working hard in there, making the show come to life. Thank you, Noah. He's been here for a long time. Really smart guy. Noah, did you start in high school here? Okay, well, whatever. But thank you, Noah. So we're back talking with retired U.S. diplomat David Hunter, and this is Jim Feeney sitting in for Rhett Palmer. Thank you, Rhett. So David, I think we beat the horse in the Middle East a little bit, but you've got one more point you want to make on Israel. I mean, for the audience's benefit, David's armed with a bunch of issues on Israel. It all gets to the same point. Eventually, you got to get to, okay, what does this mean? How do we stop a war?
Right.
And how do we get to a two-state solution? That's really where the action is. But we want to dive down back in the weeds a little bit, and hopefully David can distinguish that and get a broader point out of it.
One topic that is rising right now to the top of a list of disputes between Israel and America is the U.S. has decided to sanction, meaning to penalize Israel, a part of its army, the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force. It's called the Nataz Yehud Battalion. They're a ultra-Orthodox group that have been put together because they don't play well with the other Israelis.
Right.
And this group has been identified before this Hamas war started as having been involved in the death of a U.S. citizen, a 78-year-old U.S. citizen who was bound, gagged, and then left to freeze to death, and was also accused of, this group in the battalion was accused of raping a Palestinian.
So,
all kinds of...
They're bad guys.
They're bad guys. The U.S. found...
And they're in the Israeli army.
The U.S. found...
Does Hamas have any bad guys in their
Wait a minute.
battalion?
Wait, don't do what if.
Iran's got some real bad guys.
Jim, don't do the what if. Let's go back to the question of, we have a law called the Leahy Law.
Yeah.
The Leahy Law says that we will not
Named
provide...
after Daniel Patrick Leahy?
Yeah, and it says we will not...
Esteemed senator from New York.
Yeah, we will not provide military arms to military groups that are committing illegal anti-human rights violations, that kind of stuff. We're not going to provide arms to them. And we will not conduct training with forces. U.S. forces, military, will not conduct training with people like that. So Mr. Secretary of State Blinken just announced this week that the Nataz Yehud Battalion has been identified by the State Department. It has been literally in his back pocket for 4 months. For months now, they have already concluded the investigation at the State Department of this group, confirmed that they committed human rights violations, major human rights violations, including killing an American citizen. And therefore, he has now put that card down on the table and said, we are going to sanction that group. Now, Israel is getting very angry about this. Mr. Netanyahu said, I will fight this with my whole strength. The IDF must not be sanctioned. Okay? And he's saying that he's also saying that the Israeli government has its own means for conducting justice and investigations of misconduct. The reality is there's been almost no investigations of misconduct of the Israeli army during this entire time. We're now looking at a situation...
So let me stop you there.
Yeah.
Let me stop you there. So this Yehud Battalion, that's one small component of the Israeli military.
Correct.
IDF. Okay.
Correct.
So we're talking about a small group. All right, that's thing one. Thing two is you said Antony Blinken just declared the Leahy Act or invoked the Leahy Act to sanction this group. And then you went on to make it sound like it was the entire IDF. To be clear, is this sanctioning, they're sanctioning one small portion of bad guys in the IDF that they did an investigation on and say, yep, these guys are doing naughty things and we can't allow that to happen. So, but they have not sanctioned the entire IDF.
Not yet.
Okay. All right. So,
Not yet.
So let's talk about what the sanctions. What does a sanction mean, and how would you implement it against that small slice of the Israeli military?
Yeah. Well, obviously the key is that you would not provide arms from the U.S. Shipments, and if we were providing,
how do you enforce? So, in other words, you can send arms shipments into Israel, their wider army. Let's call it 90%. This Yehud is 10%, probably even less than that, but let's call it 10. So all the guns go on the port, but is there a guy that says, okay, only 90 of those guns can go over here, and 10 of those guns would go over there, they don't get them. So do you not give them those guns, and then instead of a 100 shipment, you get a 90 shipment? Or who decides where those guns go?
At this point in time, it is largely symbolic. It is symbolic in
That's
saying that we don't approve of the behavior of these people. You have to do a better job in managing your people.
When I hear sanctions, because sanctions has it, within diplomatic terms, has very specific meaning you're doing actual tangible punishment, right?
Right.
Well, in this case, it's mostly symbolic.
Well, in terms of implementation, it's probably mostly symbolic, because it does what we're asking Israel to do is do a better job of supervising their own troops,
policing your own
troops.
Yep.
And the reality is that the what's called the chief of staff of the IDF, the military, he has now announced that he's resigning come September.
Good.
He's announced that he's resigning.
So I'll cede the point to you, David. I mean, certainly, if you can identify really bad actors inside a military unit, then you got to expunge those, right? Yes, war has rules, kind of. I mean, this is such a slippery slope. Was dropping an atomic bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki within the rules of war.
Yeah.
They say it saved a lot of lives because a lot more would have gone. Who knows? It's the fog of war.
Well,
right?
we talked about that before.
You have to be careful. We have to be careful, because as an anti-Zionist, I know the direction you're coming from. I think make credible arguments with the same set of facts coming from an exactly opposite direction, and you meet in the middle. And if you can't agree, if two sides can't agree, you got two choices, right? Either you can find an agreement, or you go to war, or you fight. It's a street fight.
The issue,
right?
The issue I have.
We're in a street fight now. Israel. I back Israel. I think they need to do within reason.
Israel has to obey the laws of war. Israel, right now,
did Hamas obey the laws of war?
That's irrelevant.
That's not irrelevant.
It is irrelevant.
Raping and pillaging 1,200 people. We have the videos. It's a known.
They're killing Israel is killing 100 people a day.
But they started it. They started it.
Okay, Israel is killing 100 people a day or more. Okay.
It's war. That happens.
Yeah.
So what?
No, the fog of war argument does not apply. What we have just in the last couple of days, Jim, if you have been paying attention.
Oh, I love that. If you've been paying attention.
No, I'm saying
my wife hates it when I say that. I'll tell you. So are you saying I'm dumb and I'm not paying attention?
No,
I watched this whole thing play out last weekend with a group of friends. It's like, are you saying I'm dumb? So I'm just going to invoke the Katie rule.
No, okay. All right.
Yeah. If the mayor speaks.
If you have been paying attention, you will notice that in the last couple of days they have discovered.
Mayor says hit the bell.
Yeah,
I hit the bell.
They have discovered 300 bodies in a mass grave outside of the Nasser Hospital.
That's horrible.
In Khan Yunis. That's horrible. 300. Some of those bodies have Israeli writing on the plastic of the bodies. The bodies themselves. Many of them have their hands bound and their feet bound, and they have been summarily executed before they were thrown into the mass grave.
So you're telling me that it would be outside of Hamas to take any general bodies that they could find, wrap them in plastic, paint some Israeli stuff on them, and say, seriously, that's what they do. This is the primary tool of Hamas.
Jim, they have witnesses that were there. Not everybody was murdered at that scene. They have witnesses who survived that episode, who have testified, and they are now going to be opening. The United Nations is calling for an immediate investigation of this mass murder in these graves. What happens is that Israeli troops were out of control.
I don't remember any such commission happening in 1942 when the Jews were being, millions of them, on an industrialized basis, exterminated. There was no outcry. There was no stop the war, because war is war. You save this kind of a thing for after. You're an anti-Zionist. You're like Hamas. Not that you are Hamas and share all of their morality, but at least that is one common thread you have. I come from a different angle. Israel has a right to exist. This war is going to be completed, and you're looking at the ugly sausage. You cannot stop the war. I would fight vehemently against anything that stops the war from progressing to its natural conclusion.
War crimes are war crimes.
They are. You'll have to sort that out at the end.
Yeah.
Sort it out at the end.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, the reality is the end should come right now. We should be stopping this war. That's why there are protests going on. These people that are, by the way, Jim, these people that are protesting at Yale and at Columbia University and so forth, they are not pro-Hamas. Don't get that wrong. You've made this point earlier. Those
are the words coming out of their mouth. Like, and if you were paying attention, David, right, right back at you.
Yeah.
There's. The mayor lost. Oh, I love it.
Hey, somebody's paying attention.
Yes, we have an audience.
All right. Somebody's paying attention here.
Yeah. All right. So we're not going to agree on this.
Yeah.
Save this for after. Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah,
but
no.
this all falls into the anti-Zionist camp. Israel needs to prosecute this war. And they should. And I would agree with you that if Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli IDF were smart, they would tell this little group of vigilantes. Vigilantes. All right, time for you to stand down. Go back in your ball. It's like if you've seen Pulp Fiction, the gimp at the end, the guy with the ball gag in the mouth. It's like put the gimp back in the cage. Okay.
Yeah.
So
well, you know what?
let's just do that and let's move on.
You know what, Mr. Smotrich?
We're not going to stop the war.
Mr. Ben Gvir said.
Oh, I know what I'd like to talk to.
Yeah.
I think it'd be really instructive instead of talking about this to talk about the really, and I give the Biden administration kudos for this, finally thinking about playing three-dimensional chess for a change in our State Department instead of being so damn linear. They put a deal on the table, which they called a long shot. They had negotiated in Qatar, because remember, for the folks in the audience, behind the scenes, there's the constant negotiation happening, looking for an end to this, because that's good for business. That's good for business, says they're done, right? And they came up with it, the Saudi arch enemy of Israel since the beginning. Now they're getting closer because they have a common enemy, which is Iran. The United States saying, okay, we're going to deal here where Saudi Arabia officially recognizes Israel, their right to exist, their place in the Middle East. That's never happened. No Arab country. I think Jordan maybe does that. But Egypt, okay. Right. So now you're talking about the biggest and wealthiest of the Arab states, at least biggest in landmass, wealthiest in terms of wealth, oil, saying, yep, we recognize you, we want to have trade relations and so on. And and you get a two-state solution, right?
They're also the keeper of the two holy sites.
Yes, they are. And Saudi in
Muslim religious.
Yes, so this is the three-dimensional. This is the three-dimensional chess part. And to the Saudis, in order as an inducement for you to recognize Israel and march down this really rational road that should be going anyway, we are going to put you with Israel in our defense umbrella, right? You saw what we just did with Iran. Took them out. They have and that strategic imbalance is going to remain, right? You're under that umbrella. You don't have to worry about getting your own nukes.
Okay.
We are going to take care of Iran. That's a great deal. And the Israelis sort of gave it the head nod. And Hamas said
Jim,
absolutely not.
You're misinterpreting the success of the takedown of the Iranian drones and missiles. You're misinterpreting this.
Am I?
Yes. Yeah. The reality is that Iran only fired a small number of ballistic missiles. Most of them were drones, and the drones were slow-moving and easy to target, and they were given 8 hours or 10 hours of advance notice that they were coming. The Iranians actually told the Americans that they were going to fire these things, and they had preparation for it. That's why everybody was sitting there waiting for the ducks to fly over. Okay, it wasn't a surprise. It wasn't a surprise attack of any kind. Now, if they really wanted to do a surprise attack, first of all, they could mobilize the Hezbollah, which has over 100,000 missiles, including a lot of missiles.
Let me say this about that. I've been watching this conflict like you for a lot of years.
Yeah.
We're not that far in age, lived most of the life that you've lived.
Yeah.
And I've watched the Israeli Iron Dome be very effective against Hezbollah and any incoming missiles. So don't tell me that, really, we have no defense capability because the Iranians told us all in advance. It was an escalatory move. They announced they were going to do an escalatory move. Yeah, okay, what's it going to be? Probably this. Who cares?
Their attack was essentially symbolic. It was a symbolic attack.
We understand that.
They did not worry that these were going to be taken down.
But imagine for a second.
Yeah.
It's just symbolic. That's David's way of saying, it wasn't important. 300 drones, missiles, armed with who knows where they're going, blah, blah, blah. What if Israel did that? Israel just launched the same 300 in a swarm to Iran. You know what? Iran doesn't shoot down half of those, and they cause real damage. Same act. That's no longer symbolic now, is it? The intention of Israel of Iran was not to be symbolic.
Well, maybe
we just happen to have weapons that can shoot that crap down.
Maybe the United States should have sent its aircraft carrier fighters over to help the Iranians shoot down the Israeli missiles that were fired at them. That would have been equal-handed.
No, it wouldn't be, because Iran is an adversary, stated, a known against the United States.
No.
Death to America since the 1970s and Ayatollah Khomeini. I watched it on TV. We all watched it on TV. Do not conflate them. Israel,
Jim,
you need to do a better job just understanding what a friend is and what an enemy is. Okay, Israel's a friend. Iran's a freaking enemy, David.
Okay.
That good, Rhett?
The reality is that both Iran and Israel are foreign countries. They represent their own national interests, not our national interests.
Sure.
Okay? That's what they are. They're not friends. We are an ally.
So Israel's not our friend.
In many regards, they are not.
Let's go.
Israel,
no. Let's go kindergarten, because this really works.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're teaching really young people, 5, 6 years old, you got to start. So, which of these is better? Is more of an ally to the United States, Iran or Israel?
I would say neither of them is an ally of the United States. That's the point. What has Israel done for us? Tell me that. When you ask why should we invest billions of dollars, we're giving $3.5 billion a year, and now we're writing off another
What does
$20
France?
billion.
What does France do? What does France do for us? What does Japan do for us? Australia, the UK. What is the definition of an ally? We exchange important strategic stuff. We have trade together. We have a lot of Israeli scientists in the United States doing phenomenal work helping America's strategic interests. We're not the only smart people in the world. Israel is the most dense country I know of with collection of intelligence, wealth, and common good type morality, a real moral compass that drives through their civilization for 5,000 years. I don't see the same thing coming from Iran or other places. I see messianic, end of the world type shit. It's not going to stop with Israel. It's going to come right to the United States. So, David, you need to do a better job understanding what a friend is and what an enemy is. Israel's a friend. Iran's an enemy. Next question.
Yeah. Okay. Well, now that you've made yourself judge of the world,
I'm just doing what Rhett told me.
But it's a valid question, and one I hope the audience starts to ask themselves as to why is Israel such an important ally? They claim to be the defender of democracy in the Middle East. Okay, I don't consider a country that runs an apartheid regime where half of the population is under the control of the other half with their foot on their neck as being a democracy. I don't consider that to be a democracy. Israel is not a democracy. Right now they're saying only if you're Jewish, you have the right to vote. Okay, that's basically the argument of a lot of the people in Israel today. And they don't want the Arabs to even live there. So that's not a democracy. This is a theocracy. And we talked about that last week. The Jewish want a theocracy.
So is it worse than Iran's theocracy?
No, they're both theocracies and they're both bad. I don't support theocracies. I support democracies.
So I don't see this. So Iran is killing and raping its own people. Same ethnicity, Persian, right? Because millions and millions of Iranians, I have Iranian friends, right? The immigrants here, they're plugged in. Millions of Iranians that are under the boot of a theocracy that has complete surveillance state on its own people. So whatever you want to say about Israel, okay, yeah, because the enemy's in their midst, that the strategy of the enemy is to marble into the population and marble themselves into the general population and then create terrorist acts. They're experts at it. Okay. They've been doing it for decades, David.
Jim, you're referring to
them.
So
yeah, Israel's going to have somewhat of a surveillance state.
You're referring to them as if they're infiltrating, okay? That's the term that's being used. And it's actually being used also with this whole thing of UNRWA as being the Hamas is infiltrated.
UN Relief Agency specifically for Gaza.
By the way, the United Nations just completed a major investigation of UNRWA and has concluded that the Israeli claims that UNRWA was infiltrated with Hamas are false. Are false. That was just concluded a couple of days ago. The foreign minister of France concluded that. She led that investigation.
Could be.
Could be. And therefore today,
I don't trust much that comes out of the UN.
Today, the Germans.
Take that with a grain of salt, folks.
Today, the Germans have removed their block of funding to UNRWA. They are starting to refund UNRWA based on that UN investigation. As of today, the Germans have gone back to supporting UNRWA. UNRWA is, by the way, the only humanitarian organization that has the capacity to relieve the starvation, the Israeli government-inflicted starvation that is going on in Gaza right now. Okay? You sit there and say you're a Zionist and you support starving the Palestinians to death. That's what you believe.
No, I don't believe that at all.
Oh, you don't? Well, then why is it that you're supporting Israel 100%?
Listen, I am not supporting Israel 100%. All I'm saying is they have a right to exist in that place.
And the Palestinians don't?
And the Palestinians do as well, which is what, I mean, again, we're diving into the weeds. We're making the same points just through different lanes, but they all go to the same place. I want what you want. I want a two-state solution. I think that what I'm going to give Joe Biden credit or his State Department credit for even putting that out there, because that's the kind of thinking we need to create alliances to protect our interests. And is Israeli the perfect democracy? No. Are you kidding me? You think the United States is the perfect democracy? But we have it. I'm going to go back to kindergarten. I can understand what's better and what's worse. That better doesn't mean perfect, right? But I understand that it's way better than this. And in America, we're losing our way to make those determined. There are some things here that are clearly more moral and better than others. Not perfect, because we're, in order to form a more perfect union, here we all are, 250 years later, hoping we can keep it together, right? I put my money on Israel. And if Saudi Arabia can recognize Israel, we're not looking for regime change in Saudi. You have to make deals with the devil to project power and keep the peace, right? What's diplomatic rule number one? Keep the peace. How do you do that? You negotiate. You and I have negotiated a two-state solution. I haven't heard it out of your mouth that the right of return cannot be, because that's, everything gets to that. Well, right of return, right? Oh, okay. No, not to the new Arab state, right up to generalize Israel. That's a non-starter. It can't be. That's where we've ended.
Well,
that's where all this ends up.
If we go with a two-state solution, I am in agreement with you that the rate of return would be for them to come back to the Palestinian state.
Boom! Deal. Deal. We have a deal, folks. This is a threshold moment. We have some applause, Noah. We're going to have applause.
Yeah, he's got an applause over there somewhere. The no button.
The blue button.
The blue
button.
button. Blue. This blue button.
Blue or purple?
You're on the wrong page.
All right. Anyway, we
have a deal.
Now, there is, of course, the alternative of a one-state solution. And a one-state solution.
But we've already agreed on a two-state. The Arabs will never agree to that, and Israel will never agree to it.
The Israelis would never agree to a one-state solution. That's the problem.
Because they already have a state. They have a state, and it's like, okay, the other guys need a state too.
But the state is not, at the moment, the state is not an exclusively Jewish state. The state is meant to be a secular democracy, a secular democracy.
I think 18 or 20% of the population of Israel are ethnic Arabs. They're Palestinians, native Palestinians, Christians, Muslims.
Maybe that can continue.
Oh, absolutely. Why would not? They're contributing members of society, and I think they have a seat at the table in the Knesset. So this thing that like Israel wants them all to come in. They just want to get along. Yeah. They don't care what religion you practice. It's the most tolerant. I mean, shit. Jerusalem is divided up into so many different religious sects. And I grew up Christian. You have the Jewish sector. You have the Muslim sector because the Ottoman Empire ruled Jerusalem for 1,000 years.
And the Orthodox.
The Byzantine Empire. So the Israelis have done a good job making the Holy Land accessible to all the practitioners. Would I trust Iran to do that or Saudi? No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
They would. The Christians would be gone. The Jews would be gone.
Now keep in mind, I'm not a fan of Iran. Don't get me wrong. I have great respect for them.
That's good to hear that, David.
I have great.
Because I had questions.
Not under the Ayatollah. I have great respect for the Iranian Persian culture. If
Same
you go
here.
back.
We're on the same page.
Literally for
Ancient,
Iranian, Persian,
august culture that I've done.
Zoroastrianism, you name it, the whole bit.
The very first monotheistic religion was Zoroastrianism. As an aside, Rhett, I'm channeling your inner Bible here. Zoroastrians were likely what the three kings from Orient land were. They were following the stars to find, they were foretold of a Messiah being born with the Jewish people.
Were Persians,
and they were Persian, they were historians, they were mathematicians of their day and astronomers, and they believed in one single God before Abraham, etc. So they're people of the book.
Yeah, that's interesting. But what's going on right now with Iran is two big developments. One is Iran's president, Mr. Raisi, has just visited Pakistan. Pakistan is a nuclear weapons state.
Scary as hell. You're scaring me, David.
Pakistan lives right next door to Iran. They have an 800-mile border.
They're making their own alliances.
Okay, and at the same time as Raisi is visiting Pakistan, North Korea is visiting Iran with a high-level delegation. North Korea is gone to Iran.
Folks, you can see almost from my perspective how maybe St. John the Revelator was not that far off, that the end of the world will come in Armageddon, right? Megiddo, which is where? That's in Israel. The plains of Megiddo is what John, the book of Revelation, last book of the Bible and of the New Testament. And that's where it happens, under great fire. You can almost watch the chessboard coalescing on that scenario. Well, no. Honestly, I take the Bible with a grain of salt, and Rhett would be I'm a Christian. I'm a creationist. Yes, there's a God.
Yeah.
All right. Jesus was a phenomenal individual, maybe even the Son of God. Maybe I'm blaspheming, but
you're going to get invited back here more and more often.
Jesus is the essential human being, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yet, the last book of the Bible says this is where it all happens. And my God Almighty, where everything you just said, if you were building that scenario, these would be necessary pieces that would go.
Well, I am concerned with what I call the Bad Boys Club and the growing alliances. China, Russia, North Korea,
the diplomatic nightmare,
and Iran, all is very powerful. We know that the Iranians got their missile technology from the North Koreans. The Rodong missile is the basis for the Shahed missile that the Iranians use. Okay, there's been cooperation on that for a number of years. We know that Pakistan has been cooperating with the North Koreans. They got their missile also from the North Koreans, and they provided the North Koreans with nuclear technology. That's how North Korea has a nuclear bomb, is thanks to Pakistan.
Yep,
okay?
The Khan network.
The Khan network. But that was not just the Khan network. That was also the Khan government run by the Pakistani government. They were flying on Pakistan military aircraft.
I love talking about the big issues.
Yeah.
And I know one of the good things we do here is we dive deep in the weeds, and David, a lot of facts and figures to support what it is he wants to put forth. But getting all of this is just table stakes of getting to the big issues of why they're in place. How the world is becoming a really dangerous place. This is a bipartisan issue, folks, right? We need the best and brightest minds. The decisions we make shouldn't be made because they benefit one person's congressional district over another or someone's paycheck. This is the ultimate common good because you're talking about nuclear destruction. No one ever likes to think of that. You and I both grew up in an era where we had drills in school about hiding out under desks in case of a nuclear
Did you
attack,
ever wonder,
as if that was going to make a difference.
Did you ever wonder, was that going to make a difference?
At 6 years old, I knew that was stupid. I go, well, I started. We're all going to be dead anyway.
But those adults know better than we do.
That's right. No kidding. No kidding. So this is what we're talking about. And in America, we kind of whistle past the graveyard because you know what? We've created an amazing country and culture and empire. And we sit here and assume that it's just going to go on forever. And history tells us something different. And again, and I've said this before on this show, not to be a downer here, but the real solution to the problem is wars happen. And we've never had a conflict in all of human history, right, that has a war of determination, meaning a war where one side unconditionally surrenders to the other side. It's like, that's it. You set the terms. Please let me live. That was what happened in World War II. And the United States knew better and said, all right, we unconditionally kicked your asses, right? We put all of whoever we think did war crimes on trial. We've executed them. Boom. Let's start with a new beginning. We rebuilt Germany, we rebuilt Japan, enemies, and they now have become allies. So the United States has a track record, at least a data point of one, maybe two if you include World War I, of trying to make the world better and build it up in as magnanimous a way as possible. Given that as a background, but we've never had a war where there have been nuclear weapons everywhere. The United States were the only one that had that nuclear technology. Now we're in a situation where all the same dynamic in terms of adversaries and worldviews coming into, but every side's got these Armageddon weapons. How do we mutually assured destruction is what it was once? Are we just back to that now?
Yeah. Well, that's a topic for another day's.
Oh no!
Discussion.
Tell me it ain't
Yeah,
so.
it is. It is.
All right, because we're running out of time.
We're running out of time.
Okay, great. Well, you know what? Let's do that.
Let's do that. We can talk if you want to discuss nuclear. I'm prepared. I've read a lot on it, and I have some friends that worked in that industry.
Let's do that next week,
so,
if you wouldn't mind. Let's forget about Israel for a second, because all this is boiling up to the same burning question that is really the essential question every American needs to ask themselves.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Cool.
Thanks very much, Jim.
Well, thank you very much to Rhett Palmer. It's been enjoyable here. Chewing the fat with David Hunter.
Yeah.
And y'all will see Rhett next week.
We always have more problems to solve.
All right. Take care, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you.